Coming up on Theater Talk.
If you love the theater, you love this show. You don't have to agree with everything people say.
Heavens, no. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm the show's producer, Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
So, Michael, this week, the Tony Awards.
And what an exciting show it was, too. Yes. We've come to the end of yet another Broadway season. Just finished up with the big old Tony Awards last week, and here to assess what the awards were like, who won and who lost, and one last glance back at the season. We have assembled a panel of theater experts. We're joined, as always, by our good friend Jesse Green from New York Magazine. Welcome to Theater Talk, Jesse.
Thanks, Michael.
And we're also joined by Michael Musto of the Village Voice, who skipped the Tony Award press room this year. Why did you not come to that wonderful place where we all meet and ask those tough questions of the winners?
By the time of the Tony Awards, I've interviewed the Best Lighting nominees 18 times. I've had enough. And by the way, I play a photojournalist in Time Stands Still. Wasn't that the worst segment on the Tonys where the actors described like they were doing a high school report the plots of their shows?
We'll get to that in a minute. And we're also joined by Patrick Healy of the New York Times, who was not at the Tonys, but you were at your desk at the Times, sort of doing 75 different leads, right?
That would be right.
As the drama unfolded during the
evening. With my
extra
extra French fries from downstairs, trying to figure out, how do we make a story out of this?
Well, you did a very good job, because I must say, gentlemen, I thought overall this was one of the dullest theater seasons in a long time, and certainly one of the duller Tony Award shows. Do you agree, Michael?
I didn't think it was that rotten. I thought the opening medley, which went out for 4.5 hours, I believe, of jukebox songs on Broadway pretty much spelled out the problem with Broadway. I mean, it was an honest medley, and yet it was kind of pathetic, because it was saying to the world, there's no original music on Broadway anymore. Even Memphis, which won Best Musical, ain't that original. Mark Shaman today put out a message saying, joking, that my partner and I are going to sue for ripping off basically the ending of Hairspray.
Well, and Mark Shaman wrote Hairspray, and then Memphis is, at the end of Memphis, I think they integrate the dance as they do in Hairspray.
And it's the same song. We Can't Stop the Beat, and na 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 na, whatever, sha na na, goodbye.
Now, I want to ask you, Patrick, you predicted that Fela was going to win. And, you know, to me, I have to say, I thought Fela was the most interesting, flawed, but the most ambitious, artistically speaking, show of the season. But Memphis beat Fela. Why do you think that is?
Well, you could appreciate this. I got a little caught up in the math, you know, thinking about, okay, there are going to be about 700 voters, you know, about 100 of whom, you know, may be road people, but maybe they won't, you know, vote as a block, because, you know, some of them were saying to me, well, you know, we saw Memphis, we're looking forward to making money off of it.
And by road people, we should say they're the...
Road people, people who organize shows that go to Sacramento or Cleveland or so on and bring tours in. You know, I think to some extent the show Fela wasn't a book musical. It was very much sort of centered around a figure that a lot of Tony voters probably had never heard of until the show came in. They weren't familiar necessarily with the music. You know, even if they appreciated the artistry that was, you know, got it certainly from off-Broadway to Broadway, you know, they simply didn't see it sort of fitting into what they felt comfortable with and familiar with as Best Musical.
And are they comfortable with Memphis, Jesse, because it's just a old, traditional, uninteresting show that should have appeal to no one?
Well, you could put it more positively. They're interested in it because it's just an old, traditional, boring show. That, yeah, well, it looks like what their people are used to thinking of a musical looking like. Fela and American Idiot and some of the others look nothing like that, which by me is great. Yeah. But in terms of the voters and what they think might do well down the line and what makes them feel comfortable, sure, Memphis. We all said, well, you weren't here then, but we all thought that's what would happen.
But I think what's something interesting happening because you are seeing shows like Fela and American Idiot pushing the musical in new directions, and yet there seems to be this disconnection between what the artists are doing and what the Tony voters want.
Well, those two shows, American Idiot and Fela, won all the design categories for musicals.
Well, you know, that and the Toga's going to
It doesn't help them at all, but it does sort of point out to that difference that you're talking about. I think Tony voters recognize the brilliance of those innovations, but they're not necessarily liking what it adds up to.
But I know that we joked on the show about the 100 writers like myself who were dropped as voters, and I said it didn't really make a difference.
theater press
it
who
made
used
a
to vote
huge
didn't
difference.
know
I am the first to admit it made a huge difference. Not only did Memphis beat Fela, but 3 huge movie stars beat theater luminaries. If you're talking about Catherine Zeta-Jones, Denzel Washington, Scarlett Johansson. Not that they weren't magnificent, mind you, but I would have voted for 3 other people.
As soon as Scarlett Johansson won, you knew.
They're going for the glitz.
That was it.
Well,
They're
what do you-
going for people who put people
right.
in seats in the middle of a recession.
Patrick, didn't you report that in every case where there was a celebrity in the category, that celebrity won?
In almost, I would say,
Except for
Doug
Kelsey Grammer.
Hodge, right? And Doug Hodge winning, but it just seemed like once.
And just the
once
fact that
Scarlett
Red
came in-
won practically everything it was up for, including lighting, sound, this and that. And then for actor, when you leave Red, you pretty much think about Alfred Molina's performance. Didn't win for that. It won for the big
No,
movie
because
star
he wasn't a
Denzel
big enough
Washington.
star. Yeah.
Well, Denzel Washington was interesting because I kind of got the sense he was unclear what awards ceremony he was at.
I thought maybe you were coaching him about
Because he
that.
was looking as a, hey, it's a great award. This is like Tony, Oscar, Emmy. I mean,
Yeah.
he seemed a little out of it.
And all the
there.
God and Jesus talk makes me uncomfortable. God bless anyone who believes in it, but, thanking Kenny Leon, your husband, your wife, and God in the same sentence is not right.
Well, but I think you could
revival.
see the difference between people who are used to being on a stage and knowing how to work an audience and those who aren't. I mean, in the pre-show, you had Marian Seldes, who gave, to me, the most brilliant speech of
Yes,
the
she
evening
did.
by saying nothing.
She didn't overstay her welcome.
No.
For 30 seconds,
Like,
she
unlike
said
Leah
nothing.
Michelle.
Why did Marian
Yes.
not do anything but just blow a kiss and not speak? Who spoke
Marian
to her?
said that people gave too many long, boring speeches, and this is what made the ratings go down.
And she's right. So what is your
Right.
sense about the reaction in the industry to the plunging of the ratings?
I don't know. The productions still shell out hundreds of thousands of dollars to put these on. I've got to think that there's some kind of sort of branding tie-ins, that they get some upside from.
Somebody pointed out to me that it was interesting to see the Tonys trying to be hip with Green Day and Fela and flashy musical numbers that look like they're on MTV, and then they immediately cut to a laxative commercial.
No, they were all commercials for antidepressants, which was singularly apt, I
Well,
thought.
at least Green Day didn't get headbanged this year like last year, Brett Michaels.
That opening Green Day number was terrific. But then when they went into Leah Michelle singing "Don't Rain on My Parade,"
Oh, my teeth are hurting
and
just you
then
mentioning that.
Matthew Morrison taking all this time. You had people battling to making acceptance speeches, and yet they give all this time to having Matthew Morrison sing,
Well,
"All
but
I Need
do
Now
you
Is
really
the Girl."
need
And you know what?
longer
They-
time for those acceptance speeches?
And they
They were producers
promote those Glee stars for over 2 hours.
Yes.
That was their ace in the hole
Yeah.
for the younger viewers. We have the Glee stars coming,
Yeah.
and they were going to give them big, lavish numbers
Yeah.
for sure. But it was odd that, for example, they kept bringing out Green Day over and over again in numbers for American Idiot. But meanwhile, Addams Family, which I think would have gotten some attention, no matter how rotten it was denied a number. But then you did have numbers from Promises, Promises, which wasn't nominated for Best Revival. It seemed a little random, a little...
Well, don't you get the sense, Patrick, that the Tonys are moving away from strictly adhering to the shows that are nominated and trying to put as much entertainment as they can get on there, nominated or not?
Absolutely. I mean, Michael's absolutely right. Green Day and American Idiot was so overrepresented, on this show. But they saw a huge, possibly sort of like at least ratings moment with Billie Joe Armstrong.
And they have that great theater
as big a
luminary,
as
Paula
possible.
Abdul comes out and acts like she's Janet McTeer.
But
And
why-
I don't blame the Tony people for trying everything they can to stay alive and afloat.
I
don't
agree,
blame them
but
for
why
putting
isn't it-
as much star power in this production as they could.
But it's not good enough. The effort, great. Give them a Tony for that. But it really should be better. Have they never seen a television show to see how these plays will read on screen? You were all there, of course, in the front row with the stars shaking hands and all. But I was at home watching on a 20-inch screen.
We were in the sports bar.
Oh, yeah. That's what I meant.
We're not
my
even.
messy desk.
No, he's in his office eating French fries. I don't know what.
I'm
he's
at home with Dunkin' Donuts.
He's at home, and I'm working for Japanese television, so nobody was there. Nobody was there hanging
Well,
out
so
with the
then
stars.
you all saw what I saw, and it didn't look very good.
When I was growing up, part of what I fell in love with about Broadway growing up in Boston was watching these Tony ceremonies when they had the little scenes from the plays,
Yes, I agree.
just sort of recreated, and those, they stayed with me. And the idea of sort of the actors coming out, Viola and Denzel holding hands and describing, August Wilson's Fences, it just thought, oh,
Or the
Tony
next
Chang.
fall, guys.
Those
I
shows
play an
used to-
atheist.
when they
Every
describe
case
the
they were
plays.
far worse in caliber than the plays they were representing. Why does that have to be?
Yes, I agree with you. And you're absolutely right, Patrick, because I recall when Mary Alice and James Earl Jones did a scene from Fences when it was nominated in 1986. They did the big confrontation scene. And even if you didn't know the story of the play, you knew this was really exciting theater. These performers going at it, and it whetted your appetite to see the play. And to have them give book reports about what the plays are about seems to be very demeaning to a key component of the American theater, which is the non-musical play.
Well, the issue is that they have not made their peace with the fact that there are about 7 million people who will watch the show no matter what they do. And once they accept that and play to that audience that is interested in what you just described, it will be a lot better.
It's very bizarre that the whole evening was a celebration of Red, which I thought was terrific, but they acted as if this is a wonderful tribute to this incredible artist who had a wonderful message to give to the world. In the play, he's pretty much a psychopath who hates everybody and ends up killing himself.
It's true.
Yeah, that didn't come across in the little in the book report that they did on Red. Patrick, I want to ask you, what is the fallout going to be? What shows do you think are sort of teetering and may not last because they got snubbed at the Tonys?
You know, I think a lot of us thought that next fall was going to, announce its closing
That's
pretty
the
much
little play,
right away.
yeah.
The little play that lost to Red, lost Best Director, has barely been covering weekly running costs. But they say that they want to play through the summer, that they have this hope, and it's, maybe they're, being overly hopeful that, Red will close, Catherine Zeta-Jones is leaving Little Night Music, Fences is, almost completely sold out.
We should just say Red and Fences are closing in the summer because they're limited runs.
There's some limited runs. So they still hope that they're going to be able to build an audience.
Well, plus
but it's
Elton
hard
John
to
is the
see.
producer, and he just made $1 million at Rush Limbaugh's wedding, so...
Right, he could plow it in.
He can plow it in, yeah.
I would like to go back to Jesse's point, though,
Yeah.
about original work versus recreated. I mean, as much as I liked La Cage, it was just very striking that, here's a show that is now won for the third time, Best Musical, Best Revival. Terry Johnson's winning for Best Direction. And you still have people like Michael Mayer, who was not even nominated, Nathan
American
Lane
Idiot, yeah.
for American Idiot. Nathan Lane, who's carrying this whole show and is committed to an entire year.
In the Addams Family.
In the Addams Family, not just some limited engagement, 14-week number. These people who are doing kind of yeoman service, and are creating original work, whether, great or maybe less than great. And yet, so many of the awards, it did seem to be kind of recycled.
But you know what we never get to talk about, and every time I try to say this, somehow mysteriously it gets edited out in the room back there. But, okay, the Broadway season wasn't stellar. There were some fine things in it, but overall we're all expressing this idea. There was so much excellent theater in New York anyway, a lot of it off-Broadway, and I know that's not our point here, but when I think back over the year, I think of some wonderful experiences I had.
Give us a couple of quickies that you enjoyed.
When the Rain Stopped Falling at Lincoln Center Theater, Circle Mirror Transformation at Playwrights Horizons, The Aliens at Rattlestick, Clybourne Park at Playwrights Horizons.
Bye Bye Birdie.
Is there any chance, any way, that the Tonys will ever acknowledge off-Broadway, or is it just, as long as it's controlled by the Broadway people, they're going to pretend off-Broadway doesn't exist at all?
It seems like it's all about leverage. I highly doubt it. But unless someone, unless there was some sort of resurgence of commercial Broadway, and right now the dynamics.
But you
aren't
actually
there
want
for it.
more categories and more speeches on the Tonys. I don't think that's the answer. They do acknowledge off-Broadway when an off-Broadway show moves to Broadway.
But-
Next fall, next year, Scottsboro Boys is moving.
But this goes back to what the Tony Awards is about, that they're branding that the best of American theater is Broadway. And then so much of this Broadway is tied up in connections, so that the work that you are acknowledging, yes, it shouldn't be transferred to Broadway necessarily, but it's too bad that America is not told about that
That's
work
right.
and that it is equally important.
So the
and
answer is
excellent.
that Lady Gaga has to appear at Playwrights Horizons.
And then she'll
we'll
be
hear about
invited
it.
to
Yeah.
And
be a
Matthew
presenter on the Tony Award telecast.
I actually thought Sean Hayes was adorable. I'm madly in love with him now, after years of just unforgiveness.
But that's not possible because it's not believable that you could be in love with him.
Well,
And we should say that the three funniest and most gracious moments really were the three actors who were totally snubbed this
Yes.
year. Kristen Chenoweth did a little funny bit on
A
the
little
show.
funny bit, right, with Sean.
Yeah.
So, break a leg and give him an open mouth kiss.
Right,
Right.
yes. But also,
And
not be nominated. When he said you're not nominated, she passed out.
Right.
And Nathan Lane and Bebe Neuwirth, I thought were quite funny, making fun of the
Didn't
fact
you
that
think
they
they got along? What do you think? Was that just acting, or do you?
Misery loves company.
That may well be the case. I can tell you on very good authority, Nathan Lane has not been happy in that show in a long time. And if you've seen the show, you know why.
And that, of course, is in Michael Riedel's opinion of the New York Post.
That's right. All right, Jesse Green from New York Magazine, Michael Musto from the Village Voice, Patrick Healy from the New York Times. Thanks for your Tony Award wrap-up, and we'll see you next season.
We are here with one of my favorite actresses.
One of New York's favorite actresses, in fact, a legend of the theater, the great Marian Seldes, who was just honored at the Tony Awards this past week with a Lifetime Achievement Tony. Welcome to Theater Talk, Marian.
Well, thank you, Michael.
And congratulations on your lifetime.
Well, it's been a happy one.
Yeah. It's about time they gave you a Tony, because you've been nominated several times, but you never won a Tony, did you?
Yes, I won a Tony for the first time I was ever nominated for A Delicate Balance.
Yeah, that was the original.
Indeed, it was.
The original production of A Delicate Balance in like 1968, 67, yeah.
Yes.
So, Marian, I've watched with great enjoyment seeing you at a lot of events this time of the year on Broadway. And wherever you go now, whenever they say, and we would like to introduce Marian Seldes, the whole room stands up and applauds for you. You're getting standing ovations all around town.
Do you think it's because I do this?
Oh, Marian, it's an old trick, right?
I'm so pleased.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Marian, why did you become an actress?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I was more comfortable on the stage than I was in real life.
Were you shy off stage?
I think I was a quiet little girl. I was never show-off, and I hope I'm not now.
No, a little this. That's all.
A tiny little bit. Just get up, get
Goose
up.
it a little bit. And you just knew you wanted to be an actress from very early on, because you grew up in a theater family. Your father, Gilbert Seldes, was a great critic, so you were around the
Yes.
world.
He had a column in the Journal American, and he was on the opening night list. And so maybe it was because of him taking my brother and I to the theater that made us love it.
I remember once you told me you didn't really become what you thought was a really good actress till later in your life, because you're known for very big, dramatic roles and performances. Did you always start with that kind of outsized bigness on the stage when you began as an actress? Did you have that?
No.
No?
Because I never had important parts when I began as an actress. I wasn't one of those lucky people who immediately made an impression in a part. And so, no.
What was the role that sort of was your breakthrough role, though, if you were doing the small roles, not getting much attention?
I would say, Michael, it would be painting churches, because you can't. I remember thinking once when I was still very young, if only you could not tell the story of the play without mentioning the part I play. That would be very important to me.
And that was the first part you had that was integral to the play.
I thought so. I thought so.
And that was the breakthrough. That when
I
you.
think it was. I think from then on I got better parts.
Interesting.
And you know, if we're finishing the awards series of the time, it's really the part that gets you nominated. If you have a wonderful part and you are no good in it, you're not going to have the nomination.
Yeah.
But if you have a wonderful part and you excel in it, you will.
I just want to say you are well known for never missing a performance.
I never missed a day of high school either. If I say I'm going to show up, I show up.
Really? Have you performed when you've been really ill, or
No.
had to barrel through something?
No. I don't think so. I've had a throat trouble, occasionally.
Yeah.
But I would not. I'm ashamed to say this. I don't want someone else to play my part. It's my part. I don't have a lot of confidence.
Really?
No, a lot of actors don't. I do think I can certainly play a part, and I wouldn't accept one if I didn't think I could. But I'm not. I just don't think I'm the greatest actress in the world.
Really? Despite the accolades over the years?
Yes, and I
rave reviews?
wanted to be. I still want to be. I'm looking in your eyes and telling you that. I think it's still a little bit childish.
When you say you don't think you're a great actress, if I may ask, what is your criticisms of yourself as an actor?
I don't think of my own performances in terms of criticism. But if you open on a play in Broadway and you don't know what the reviews will be, the reviews you write for yourself are more terrible than anyone could possibly imagine. Because you are self-conscious. I often wished I looked different. I think I look so much like myself that it's hard for you to believe I'm somebody else. You know what I mean?
Well, you certainly have a distinctive look.
Yeah.
And you wanted to look differently? You wanted to...
Well, I thought if I didn't look so markedly like myself, you would believe me more.
You have this very distinctive, wonderful look, and a strong actor needs that.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I looked like you.
Oh, Michael Riedel, you look like Michael Riedel. Now, Marian has a piece of paper in her hand we have to ask about.
Yes, I want to read something that I read at the Tony nominee luncheon a few days before the Tonys.
Yes?
And I do this every year because they ask me to. And they say it's the benediction to the actors. And this was written by Robert Edmund Jones, who was a wonderful writer and also a wonderful stage designer. And I knew him because we lived in the same house. And I loved his book, The Dramatic Imagination. Have you ever seen that book?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a
Classic.
beautiful, wonderful book because he's shameless about loving the theater. And can I read you a little thing from it? And if you would think of these lovely actors and actresses listening to this. An artist must bring into the immediate life of the theater images of a larger life. Here is the secret of the flame that burns in the work of the great artists of the theater. They seem so much more aware than we are. They seem so much more alive than we are, so much more awake, and so much more that they make us feel that what we call living is not living at all, but a kind of sleep. Their knowledge, their wealth of emotion, their wonder, their elation, Their swift, clear seeing surrounds every occasion with a crowd of values that enriches beyond anything which we, in our happy satisfaction, have ever imagined. In their hands, it becomes not only a thing of beauty, but a thing of power, and we see it all, beauty and power, as a part of the life of the theater. Now, he was in love with it.
And put like that, I can see why you like to be on stage more than any place else.
Yes. And saying somebody else's words.
Yeah. And creating a whole nother person.
Yes, yes.
Will you do, are you going to do any more plays? Are you still acting now?
Oh, I want to. Do you think I've retired?
I hope not. Angela Lansbury, your dear friend at 82 or 83, is just finishing up a great run in A Little Night Music.
And she's beautiful in it.
Yeah. So you're available?
Oh, yes. but not for her part.
No, of course not.
I know my place.
Well, Marian Seldes, it's always a real pleasure to see you, and congratulations on the Lifetime Achievement Tony Award.
Thank you.
And we'll give you a little
Yes,
theater talk
bravo,
standing
bravo,
ovation.
bravo.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Oh, thank you, Marian.
I just wanted to say that you should watch Theater Talk every week if you want to get a sense of what is happening in the New York theater. And it isn't always New York, is it?
No, not at all.
Because I've seen you do fantastic things from the Guthrie, for instance. And I just think if you love the theater, you love this show. You don't have to agree with everything people say.
Heavens no.
That's all right. But we can all agree that you're one of a kind, Marian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.